Whether or not it's your first time on P&O Cruises ARVIA, this video is packed with over 50 tips and hacks to get the most out of this beautiful ship. I'll be sharing tips before you sail and while on board, including entertainment, dining, and even some handy tips to help you not get lost. The first set of tips I'm going to share with you is before you sail. Go to this website and download your port guides for your itinerary. If you go to this site, enter in your cruise number, you'll see all of the ports listed with an overview of the destination and an interactive map. If you want to mark a special occasion or dine in any one of Arvia's specialty restaurants, then it's best to book this in advance, particularly if you want a specific date. Some venues are very popular and sell out quickly, so make a note of the date when you can start making reservations before you sail. And at the same time, you can also book shore excursions and any spa treatment. If you're travelling with kids and want them to join any of the activities in the Reef Kids Club on board, then a great option is to register your kids in advance using the form on the link which will be emailed to you. Another thing to do in advance of your sailing date is to join one of the Arvia Facebook groups. Now, not all Facebook groups are created equal, so I've popped some ones I'd recommend in the description below. I found these particular groups to be friendly, informative, and well administered. The next tip is about the essential things you need to pack, such as these things, but I'll get round to telling you more about them later on in the video. So you're finally on board, here's some tips about how not to get lost. Arvia is a big ship. There are 19 decks and she's over 345 metres long, so you might have trouble finding your way around. At the lifts, you'll find these helpful lists of what's on each deck. To get your bearings, the main cabin decks are between decks 9 and 15. Decks 6, 7 and 8 you'll find most of the restaurants and entertainment venues. And on decks 16 to 19 you'll find most of the outside activities and pools. There's also these really useful interactive ship maps which help you find out what's on each deck, and they'll even give you a route finder and directions about how to get between different points. The lift and stairwell areas are your friends when trying to find your way around. On each of the 3 lift areas on board Arvia, you'll find these handy signs which show you which side is port and which side is starboard. If your cabin number is odd, then it will be on the starboard side, and if it's even, then your cabin will be on the port side. On the corridor walls near each lift and stairwell, you'll also find these signs, which point you in the right direction, and they'll show you in the shaded area what part of the ship you're currently in. One of my tips when you're finding your way around is to work out which is the nearest set of lifts to your cabin. There are 3 sets of lifts and stairwells on Arvia, and each one comes with its own colour-coded discs. Blue for forward, white for midship and red for the aft. And you'll also know which lift you're actually in because each lift has the corresponding colour-coded artwork, blue, white or red. The cabin numbers on Arvia follow this format, where the last 3 digits is always your cabin number and the first 1 or 2 digits is your deck number. All cabin numbers usually range from 100 to 700. The nearer your number is to 100, then it will be towards the front of the ship, and if your cabin is towards the 700s, then it's going to be at the back of the ship. Another handy hint for finding out where the front of the ship is when you're walking down one of the corridors to look at these pictures. If you're facing the rising sun, then you're walking towards the front of the ship, and if you're facing the sunset, then you're walking towards the back of the ship. If you need to contact anyone back in your cabin, then dotted around the ship and at each stairwell are these phones. You just need to dial your cabin number. In your cabin, when you get on board, you'll each have one of these handy pocket maps. They can be fantastic for helping you find your way around. However, they do get a little mangled, so it's good to know that you can go back to reception and ask for a replacement at any time. Next, let's run through some tips and hacks for your cabin. One of the great things on board Arvia is that each cabin has these low lights which are perfect for finding your way around in the night without waking up the rest of the cabin. But my tip is to find the switch that controls these lights and maybe put a post-it note or marker on it. If you're struggling to store your cases in your cabin, then remember that there's plenty of space underneath your bed. Many people miss these, but there is a USB charging socket underneath each of the bedside light switches in your cabin. On the last evening before you disembark, you can leave your cases outside to be transported to the cruise terminal. However, my tip is always leave one carry-on case or small piece of hand luggage with your clothes in for the next day. This is to ensure that you don't run the risk of walking off in your pyjamas. Now, the storage space on Arvia in the cabins is limited to shelves. Even in the suites, there's not many drawers. But if you like having drawers in your cabin, then I suggest investing in some of these from IKEA, which I use as makeshift drawers, and they fit nicely inside the cabin storage. The best thing about these scub drawer inserts from IKEA is that they are very lightweight and they are also fully collapsible. They're also very easy to put together and disassemble, and they take up hardly any space in your case. If you want to take your own mixers on board to store in your cabin fridge, then I suggest packing small cans rather than taking bottles, as these are easier to fit in the door compartments. Then you're left with additional space in the main fridge for other big bottles. Another tip in your cabin is that you can ask your cabin steward for ice and lemon to be delivered each day. Now, my next tip is just a general one about cabin location on Arvia. Arvia is quite a long ship, there's 19 decks, so when you're choosing your cabin, think about what facilities you're going to be using most on board and where they are located. Use a deck plan to help you with this. For example, many of the well-being areas such as the gym, the retreat, the spa and the quiet areas are all located towards the front of the ship, while many of the outdoor activities, pools, outdoor bars and the main dining areas such as the restaurants and buffet are located towards the back of the ship. If you have mobility restrictions, then cabins in the midship area near the atrium and the sky dome are pretty well connected with most things on board. If you're travelling with kids, especially with younger children, then I'd suggest looking at cabins in this area towards the back of the ship. This is mainly because these cabins will be within easy reach of the Reef Kids Club and most of the pools. They'll also be near lots of the free outdoor activities such as the splash park and the mini golf. Plus, they'll also be near the Horizon Buffet, which has a kids' tea every night at 5 p.m. If you're finding all of these tips helpful, then please do consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video. Keep watching for more tips. Now, the next set of tips is a bumper one, and we're going to talk about dining on board. The Olive Grove and the 6th Street Diner, which are both included in your cruise fare, have menus which change every few days. So it's worth considering if you like a dish and want to return to try it again, find out when that item will next be on the menu. Or alternatively, you might want to go on a different night just to try something new. If you're tempted by the afternoon ice cream tea in Ripples, then my tip is to order just one person, which is ample for two. This is what you get per person, so depending on your appetite, you might find that this is more than enough. If you're trying to hunt down the best burger on Arvia, then it's definitely in the Keel and Cow. Whilst this restaurant isn't included in your cruise fare, it's definitely worth a small additional charge. While Arvia does have an American diner, unfortunately, it does have also the worst burger on board. Take a look at this. Now, even the burgers in Taste 360 in the Sky Dome come out better than the 6th Street Diner burger. If you're up for trying something different, then I definitely recommend going to Green & Co., which is a vegan-forward restaurant, but don't let that put you off if you're a meat eater. While the restaurant is not included in your cruise fare, the dishes are delicious and very reasonably priced. Sindhu is a firm favourite across the whole P&O fleet for great Indian cuisine. However, if you missed out on a dining reservation or you don't want to pay the additional charge, then did you know that there is a curry on the menu every day in the main dining room, and that's included in your cruise fare? The quays can get very busy, especially at lunchtime, but there is a quieter space to sit if you head on a little further down towards Sindhu and Ripples. And if you'd like a quiet breakfast away from the busy Horizon Buffet, then head on down to the quays, grab a hot coffee and croissant for a quiet and chilled out start to your day at the Sunset Bar. If you don't like dressing up on celebration evenings on Arvia, then there are plenty of venues which allow more casual dress. These are Brody's on Deck 8 and the Horizon on Deck 16. Now on to my hints and tips for drinks on board. My first tip is to take at least one refillable bottle on board. While P&O now charges for water in your cabin, there is still plenty of free water refill stations around the ship, such as in the Sky Dome and the atrium. While I have a separate video coming up about the drinks package, my quick tip here is to leave it perhaps till the second day on board to purchase your drinks package, as you might not always get the full value out of your drinks package on your first day on board. A tip from me, if you've decided not to opt for the drinks package, is to remember to pack your alcohol allowance in your case before you get on board. If you like hot chocolate before you go to sleep, then head up to the Horizon Buffet where this is served each evening. Just remember you won't find it on the self-service dispensers, you'll just have to go to the counter. If you like a certain drink, such as a bottled cider, then my tip is to take that with you on your first night into the main dining room, as not all drinks are available to order from your waiter at the table. Vista's Cafe Bar in the atrium can get particularly busy around mid-morning as everyone huddles there to get their caffeine fix. However, did you know that you can order Costa coffee from most of the bars throughout the ship? My tip to avoid the queues is to head up straight to either the Glass House or the Laguna Bar in the Sky Dome instead. If you're after some additional ice, either for your water bottle or for your cabin, then head to Deck 8 in between the clubhouse and the quays where you'll find this ice machine. Okay, so now on to my entertainment tips and hacks. Your Horizon magazine, delivered each day, contains a lot of information about what's happening in the different venues on board throughout the day. This can often get quite mangled, so my tip is to take a photo on your phone, if you carry one, of the different sections at the start of the day, and in that way you've got a pocket-sized and more durable guide with you at all times. If you want to visit the 710 Club, but you've found that all of the bookings have already been taken, then my tip is to hover around before the start of a session, as there's always at least few people who book but never turn up. If you're interested in seeing a film in Ocean Studios, then my tip is to turn up at least quarter of an hour before the start time. That's when the lights go down and it can be difficult to find out whether there are any seats left in the dark. Popular films on sea days are always busy. And remember, if you miss out on a film, then there's also a good selection of films available on the TV for free in your cabin. The Headliners Theatre can be an excellent place to see live music and a variety of shows. However, if you don't fancy any of this entertainment on offer, then remember there are two other large venues which provide alternative entertainment and shows throughout the day on board. In the atrium and the amber lounge, you'll find breathtaking aerial performances, silent discos and pianists. And in the Sky Dome and clubhouse, you'll find tribute acts and live music. Now on to my tips for when you're out on deck. If you're looking for a quiet place to sunbathe, then head up to Deck 19 where there are these two quiet sunbathing platforms. The smoking areas on Arvia can be found on Deck 18, one near the forward lifts and one near the panorama pool, which is reached via the midship lifts. If you're looking for a nice quiet space inside, especially on a sea day, then head towards the front of the ship and the crow's nest. On sunny days, the quieter infinity pools will always be found on the shaded side of the ship, as the aft whirlpools on Deck 8 tend to be a bit of a trek to reach in your swimming costume. Then these are also relatively quiet, especially at lunchtime and also from about 4 p.m. while everybody starts to retreat to their cabins to get ready for dinner. If you're after an uninterrupted swim, then head to the Sky Dome pool. This is the larger of all the pools on board, and if you head here before breakfast, then you'll get the best conditions. Swim towels are available near all the main whirlpools and pools on board, and you'll find them stored in these type of cupboards. And now on to some tips about the facilities and services on board Arvia. If you need to do any washing on board, then there are laundrettes available throughout the day. However, some times and days are likely to be busier than others. The laundrette is located at the front starboard side on Deck 16 and near the midship lifts on the starboard side on all other decks. With cabins on Decks 4 and 5, this switches to the port side. The only exception for this is that there are no laundrettes available on Deck 17 and Deck 8. If you are planning to use the laundrette, then there is a handy list of quick access programs available on both washers and dryers by pressing the favourites button. Don't forget to pack laundry tablets. My tip is to pack them in a Ziploc bag. Should the worst happen, then all the contents don't spill everywhere in your case. I've already mentioned how helpful the Horizon magazine is, but if you're going ashore, my tip is to either take the Horizon magazine with you or at the very least take a photo on your phone of these two important pieces of information. Your all aboard time, and remember to make sure that your watch or phone is synced with ship time, and also take a photo of the contact details of the port agent. In the worst case scenario, if you know you're not going to be able to make it back to the ship in time, then your first call should be made to the port agent. If you're keen to take part in some retail therapy, my tip is to browse the shops on the first couple of days, and then if you have your eye on something in particular, watch out for any offer days that come up as advertised in the Horizon magazine. Another tip if you're interested in getting a spa treatment is to look at the offers available on port days or embarkation day. There are some great offers and discounts to be had. If you're interested in using the thermal spa on more than 3 occasions, then it's probably more cost effective to purchase a 7-day pass. I hope this has given you some ideas of ways to get even more out of your cruise on board Arvia. If you've got any further tips you'd like to share, or if you think I've forgotten anything, then please do add your suggestions in the comments below. Or why don't you watch one of these videos now?